December 10th, 2022. I know you remember the date because I definitely do. England lost 2-1 on the night to France in the World Cup quarterfinals and got knocked out of the competition in Qatar. 3 months on from then, England are going to be facing Italy and Ukraine in the upcoming European Championship qualifiers, and Gareth Southgate's got another dilemma as he's got to pick his England squad. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to pick my England squad for the Championships in 2024, and I'm going to be looking ahead to what the squad I think Gareth Southgate should be trying to pick. And of course, when deciding your England squad, you need to have a tier list. So I've got 5 tiers here. The first one being starting 11. Pretty self-explanatory. These players are going to be starting 100% without a shadow of a doubt, probably every game, and they're going to be crucial to England's European Championship qualifiers. You got in the squad, so players who are going to be maybe in and out of the first 11. They're going to be, if not, they're going to be coming off the bench pretty much straight away, and they're going to be in and around the squad. And I think they're going to be more or less a shoo-in for the European Championship squad. Sneak on the plane. Now, these are the players around 20 to 25 who everyone's going to be debating about should they go, should they stay, what should be going on. And they're going to be players who I think are just going to sneak on the plane at this moment in time. You've got unlikely players who I think just aren't going to be either good enough or aren't going to give themselves enough of a run-in to show that they deserve to be on the plane. And they've got no chance in hell. And I think these are players who either have or are going to be in and around the England squad, but come to the time, I don't think they're going to be good enough, and I don't think they've got no chance in hell of making that plane. Now let's begin, and let's start with the goalkeepers. And the options for me are Jordan Pickford, you've got Nick Pope, Aaron Ramsdale, and Dean Henderson. I know there's a couple of other goalkeepers I could have included. I mean, the likes of Freddie Woodman's doing amazingly well at Preston. I think Sam Johnson has been in a couple of England squads. He's back up to greater Crystal Palace now. But I think, come summer 2024, these are going to be the four goalkeepers who are going to be in the running and going to be in and around it. And let's start with Jordan Pickford, because I think for me, he's going to be in the starting 11. He's going to be England's number one again come the Euros. And there's been some speculation around him. I know some people really like Aaron Ramsdale, and I really like Aaron Ramsdale myself personally. However, I just think the fact that come the Euros, he's going to be the goalkeeper who's played in the World Cup under Gareth Southgate. He's going to be playing in the Euros under Gareth Southgate, and he played in the World Cup again in Qatar under Gareth Southgate. And I don't think Southgate's going to change. I think he's going to be stick and stay loyal to Jordan Pickford as number one, despite the pressure from Aaron Ramsdale. And we know Gareth Southgate's been incredibly loyal to his players. I mean, Harry Maguire is an example, and we'll come on to Harry Maguire in the defence in a bit. But I think Pickford, who has had a bad season, I'd say, at Everton. I mean, Everton shouldn't be in the relegation zone really, but the mismanagement of that squad has meant that they are where they are at the moment in time. Relegation zone, 18th place. However, under Sean Dyche, they look like they might be playing a bit better, and I think Pickford's number one for me. Aaron Ramsdale, I think, is definitely on the plane, 100% on the plane, and there's going to be a lot of people who, like myself, I think, did say that he should maybe get a chance at the World Cup, didn't get it, and you can completely understand it with Pickford doing amazingly well for England so far. But if you think about where Ramsdale's going to be at the end of next season, we'll see what happens at the end of this season, but he might have a Premier League winners' medal in his trophy. He would have had a whole season playing in the Champions League, and I think it's almost certain that Arsenal are going to get Champions League at this point. And with that experience, maybe he gets himself a few more England caps as well and gets that international experience, which is the only thing that's kind of lacking at this moment in time. And he's definitely going to be in and around there. And the only way I see Ramsdale starting for England at the Euros is if he has an incredible season and Pickford has an absolute howler of a season. I think if Ramsdale has an amazing season and Pickford has an okay season, I still think he takes it. And even if it's up to Ramsdale really to try and force himself into the squad, and Pickford's got to have a howler. And I just don't see how he's going to have. The swing's going to be that much, especially since Southgate's shown he loves Jordan Pickford. And if you look at their save percentages over the course of this season so far, Pickford's save percentage is 71.5%, and Ramsdale is 72.3%. So there's nothing much in it at all, really. I mean, arguably you could say that from 26 games that Ramsdale's played, he's only conceded 25 goals, compared to Pickford's 25 games and he's conceded 38 goals. And that's 13 more goals. However, if you take in context the two teams they're playing for, Jordan Pickford's playing for a relegation team in 18th place, and Aaron Ramsdale playing for top of the league in Arsenal. So of course the defence in front of them and the whole team unit's going to be a lot more different. But I just think that Southgate's going to go with Ramsdale, but he is definitely 100% going to be on the plane, going to be second choice. And at some point soon, Ramsdale is going to have to take Pickford's slot, because I think he has the potential to be the better goalkeeper, and I think arguably he maybe is that already. But we're going to have to wait and see. And I don't think Southgate is going to jump to get rid of Jordan Pickford, who's done nothing wrong for England in an England shirt. And I think, Pickford deserves it, because he gets a lot of criticism, but he's never let the side down. And I then think third choice goalkeeper, you've got Pope and you've got Henderson. Pope obviously went to Qatar with the World Cup. He had Gareth Southgate's backing. Henderson has been in and around the England squad, but never really cemented himself as a third choice. But I think it's going to be Nick Pope. And I think he's going to be on the plane. And I think Dean Henderson he is unlucky. However, he needs to do more. And I think that's harsh on Henderson. I do really think I'm being harsh on him. But if you look at it, he's played 18 games so far this season. He's conceded 31 goals. And obviously, Nottingham Forest were, some people saying, guaranteed to get relegated. And they've done really well so far. But he got injured. He's been replaced by Keylor Navas now. And you can't argue with that. I mean, Keylor Navas, a Champions League winner. And you're expecting him to be benched for Dean Henderson? No, not really. I mean, I think the whole thing with Dean Henderson being in Man United, there was a period of time during lockdown where he did get the number one spot for De Gea towards the back end of the season. However, he didn't really cover himself in glory, and he ended up being benched again, and David De Gea regained the number one spot, who's now doing amazingly well. And I think Dean Henderson needs to be sold. And he needs to go play for a Premier League team, because he's definitely a Premier League quality goalkeeper, but needs to be starting week in, week out. And the fact that he's on loan, I think impacts him a little bit, because Nottingham Forest fans kind of go, okay, he's a great Premier League goalkeeper, he's going to do really well for us. But there's no loyalty or affinity really to Henderson, because he's going to be gone at the end of the summer. And I think Henderson needs to go somewhere on permanently, so the fans of that club can really voice their opinions of how good a goalkeeper actually is, because he is a solid goalkeeper. However, when you compare him to the Pickford, Ramsdale and Pope, he's got the worst save percentage, he's got the worst post-shot expected XG, and he's averaging 1.72 goals a game, which is the worst out of all three of them. And really, I'm going to put him in unlikely, Henderson, because stranger things happen in football. He could have an absolute worldie next season and he could force himself into that third choice. But I think at this moment in time, that's going to be his limit. It's only going to be third choice goalkeeper. And if he doesn't make the front three, he's going to be on the reserves and he's going to be waiting for an emergency call-up in case anything happens to the first three. But Nick Pope, I think, definitely deserves to be in the three that goes to the Euros. And at this moment, I don't see how he doesn't, because he's got the best save percentage of all three, 77.8%. And his goals per game ratio is 0.73. And I know Newcastle defence has been incredible, but he's had a hand in that as well. And he's had the perfect club at this moment in time, I think, because he is an excellent shot stopper, and we all know that. He's one of the best in Europe. But his distribution with the ball isn't that great. But for what Newcastle need at this moment in time, he's perfect. And it's one where he can arguably grow with the club as well. So Newcastle at this moment in time are in 6th, and they kind of folded in the last few weeks leading up to the Carabao Cup final, which unfortunately they lost. But you'd assume, unless Newcastle have a massive drop-off, that they're going to be in Europe of some sort next season. And if Nick Pope is going to be playing week in, week out in the Premier League and going to have that experience of Europe, that's just going to boost his CV. And I think he's going to look at it and say, do you know what? He deserves to be there, and his distribution is either going to improve in his time, because he's playing for a Newcastle side that they're going to be on the up, he's going to be on the up, and he's at the perfect club at this moment in time for him, because they've just bought him this summer. They're not going to replace him just quite yet. I mean, eventually they might have to, because they might need a goalkeeper with better distribution. But for me, Nick Pope is definitely going to be in and around it come next summer, and I think he is going to be comfortably the third choice goalkeeper. I mean, unless Dean Henderson does a madness, but at this moment in time, I just don't see it, because what team's going to pay money for Dean Henderson? And that's going to be likely what Man United want. They're probably going to want 25-30 million at least, and I do feel a bit sad for Dean Henderson, because I think he is a top quality goalkeeper, but he gets a bit of a bad rap. And yeah, for me, I think it's going to be an unlikely. I think Pope is going to make the plane. Now let's move on to the defence, and let's start with the left backs. And I've got 7 names written here, but I think it might be quite straightforward. We've got Luke Thomas, Ben Chilwell, Dan Burn, Rico Henry, Tyreek Mitchell, Ryan Sessegnon, and Luke Thomas. And again, there's not very many options left back, and these are really scraping the bottom of the barrel. So let's start with Luke Thomas, who's played 10 matches so far this season, total 691 minutes, and has impressed me last season mainly. This season it's kind of been a little bit underwhelming, but so were the whole of Leicester, especially the beginning of the season. You forget, they were dreadful this beginning of the season. You kind of thought to yourself, are they going to get relegated? And Brendan Rodgers were under real pressure. But for me, I don't think Luke Thomas is the one for Euro 24. He might prove to be a decent Premier League player. Maybe he might prove to be a Championship player. Who knows where he's going to be in the future. But when you sign a player like Christensen in January for Leicester, and he's only 20, he's made 4 starts already in the league, I kind of think maybe Brendan Rodgers and his coaching staff are going to be leaning more towards Christensen than they are Luke Thomas. And it's kind of a shame, because he did really impress me, but he has been underwhelming. And for me, for Euro 24, he's got no chance in hell. Let's move on to Tyreek Mitchell, who at Crystal Palace has impressed me. He's played 23 times this season, 21 of those have been starts. I think defensively he's been really good. I think the issue obviously is attacking. How good is he attacking? I'm not sure he's all that. He's been okay, don't get me wrong. There's not a dig at him. He's a very solid left back option for Crystal Palace, but I'm not sure he's going to be moving off Crystal Palace anytime soon. And I think it might be one where attackingly he's going to be let down. So for me, no chance or unlikely. And I'm going to put him in no chance. It's harsh, but the quality of players we're going to be talking about ahead of him are just that much better. So for me, Tyreek Mitchell, no chance in hell. We've got Ryan Sessegnon, 17 matches played in the league. That doesn't include Champions League. He's made 9 starts. And it's difficult for him to get into the Spurs side, because you've got the likes of Ivan Perisic ahead of him. And I know a couple of Spurs fans have been saying that they want Perisic to be playing for the forward. Sessegnon should be trying to establish himself a bit more, but he just can't get ahead of Perisic, and it's one where he lacks defensively for me. And he's been playing in the left wing back role rather than left back as well, and I don't think he's good enough defensively, and he hasn't improved much over the last couple of seasons. There was he had a purple patch where I thought, Conte's going to work with him, he's going to make him a really fantastic player, and he's showing real promise, but he never really kicked on from there. Perisic came into the team, and he's definitely a backup for him. So it's another one, a bit similar to Luke Thomas, where I don't think he's going to get into game time. He's not going to be impressing me as much. So I think no chance in hell for Ryan Sessegnon. He really needs to, I think, maybe leave, or needs to be getting consistent game time week in, week out to get with the chance. Rico Henry at Brentford, who has really impressed me. But again, another one who plays similar to Ryan Sessegnon, who plays left wing back for his team and not left back. So defensively, he isn't as good. To be fair to Rico Henry, when I watch him, he passes the eye test, and I think I'm really impressed with him. But I looked at his stats, and his stats aren't impressive at all. I mean, his most impressive stats were his clearances, which he's in the 67th percentile, and his successful take-ons, which is 57%. And when you look at his stats, they're very underwhelming, and these are from FB Ref, and it kind of showed to me he kind of has the clearances, has the take-ons, and you think, he's really good. But then defensively and attacking, apart from that, he hasn't really done much else. I mean, his expected assists, shots on target, nothing is really impressing me. If Brentford do well, like they've been doing really well this season, and that's why it maybe appears that Rico Henry's doing well, better than he is, but he's one where I think he can definitely improve. At 24, he can definitely get better. And I'm going to put him... I don't think he's got no chance in hell. I think he definitely has a chance, but I think it might be more unlikely. I think it's going to be unlikely because of the three left back options we're going to be talking about ahead of him. Firstly, Luke Shaw. And Luke Shaw gets a lot of stick. He got a lot of stick when he was starting for England at the World Cup in Qatar. But I think he's definitely on the plane. He's definitely on the plane. Because being a natural left-footed player, he's obviously going to get a leg up compared to everyone else. But also, for Man United this season, Luke Shaw's been immense. I mean, Malacia came in the summer, and I thought to myself, okay, Luke Shaw's going to be faded out of the team. Malacia's going to become first choice, but that's not happened. It seems like every time Luke Shaw has some competition, he excels and he thrives, and that's what he needs. And it was kind of unfortunate the fact that England really only had one out-and-out left-back at the World Cup, because I think maybe if Ben Chilwell would have been fit and would have been there, he would have definitely tested Luke Shaw a bit more, and he maybe would have been rotated, would have been got a rest, and maybe he wouldn't have looked as tired as he did. I think tired's the right word to use, but since the World Cup, he's been, again, immense for Man United, apart from that 7-0 drubbing against Liverpool, which the whole team was poor, but I think he's been good so far this season. For me, he's definitely on the plane. Dan Burn, who I love, because the whole story of him coming through the leagues, being a Geordie of Newcastle, getting his move in this last year, and now coming into that side and playing left back. Playing left back for a guy who you think 6'6" should be a towering centre back, but no, he's been playing left back for Newcastle and doing really well and really impressed me. Does Gareth Southgate rate him? I'm not sure, because at the moment in time he's 30. His birthday's in May. He's going to be 32 come the Euros next year, and he did everything right. He did absolutely everything right to be picked for the World Cup. Ben Chilwell was out injured, and you thought to yourself, as a backup left back, why not? But the fact is, Gareth Southgate didn't fancy him. And if you're only going to take one left back to the World Cup, is Dan Burn even really in contention? And I think coming on to a point we're going to talk about later on with the right backs, I think maybe Gareth Southgate prefers playing some of the right backs and left backs, such as the likes of Trippier. It's tough because I really want him. I don't know. We are going to come back to Dan Burn because he's a player that can also play centre back, and so maybe when we talk about the centre backs, we'll discuss him as well, and then we'll see how the squad is shaping up. And then the last name, Ben Chilwell, who for me, he is in the starting 11, and I think you can see by him coming back to full fitness this season for Chelsea, and the way Chelsea have been playing, they haven't been getting the results, but they've been playing so much better with Ben Chilwell in the team, Ben Chilwell and Reece James, because they miss them so much. So much of how Chelsea play depends on the fullbacks, and for me, he is arguably England's best left back, left wing back. I think he can play both positions. I think defensively he's very underrated, and for me, he's in the starting 11. And Luke Shaw's the understudy. However, fitness is a real issue with Ben Chilwell, and we'll see what happens when he comes to the squad next year, and if he's fit and how many games he's been playing in this season, because we really could have done with him in Qatar. However, he just wasn't fit. But for me, if he's fit, he's definitely in the starting 11. And then let's move on to centre-backs, because surprisingly, I was trying to do my research for this, and I didn't realise how many centre-backs or decent centre-back options England actually have. So if you start with the four that actually went to the World Cup, it was Conor Cody, Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire and John Stones. And I think out of those four, one of them is in the starting 11, 100%. And for me, that's John Stones. John Stones is England's best centre-back, and he's arguably Man City's best centre-back as well, because this season when he's not been playing and he's been injured, they've really, really missed him. And then it only really leaves three spots, because a big thing to come out of the World Cup was England playing four at the back and playing four at the back the entire time. And I know we lost to France in our quarterfinal, but we were the better team on the day, and that was with four at the back. And so I think this team has now come through an evolution where in the World Cup and in the Euros before this, that it was a lot of you played through the back against the bigger, better teams because we aren't good enough. We don't have as many good defenders. But now in the World Cup in Qatar, we showed we could play for the back. We could dominate. I know we didn't win, but we showed we can play for the back. And I think if we go back to a back three, it'll be regressing, and it won't be that progression we've had under Gareth Southgate. So, Southgate, you're not watching, but stick to four at the back. Stick to four at the back. You only need to take 4 centre backs. And so if John Stones is guaranteed, that leaves 3 more spaces. So like I mentioned, in the World Cup, we took Conor Cody, Erik Dyer, Harry Maguire as well. Your other options are Tomori, Chris Smalling, Ben White, Joe Gomez, Lewis Dunk, Ezri Konsa, James Tarkowski, Mark Gahey, Tyrone Mings, Adam Webster, Chalobah, Kilman, Adebayo. That's a lot. That's a lot of names. So let's rattle through the obvious ones. Chris Smalling, Gareth Southgate hasn't fancied him forever. He's 32 now. He'll be 33, 34 come Euros. He's not going to be going. Joe Gomez, I think technically he's got all the qualities. However, he's just massively inconsistent. He can't even get into the Liverpool side. Even when we have injuries, we desperately want Matip and Konate to come back fit. I don't see it for me personally, so he's not going to be going. Lewis Dunk, again, I think he's had his time now, and if he was going to be picked for an England squad, it would be before then, and then this is for next summer, so I don't think Lewis Dunk's going to be going. Ezri Konsa, Tyrone Mings. Mings, again, similar to Lewis Dunk, I think he's had his time. He's started for England as well, and I don't think he's going to be there anymore. Ezri Konsa, really had high hopes for him, but he's kind of dropped off with his form. It'll be interesting next season what happens when Diego Carlos is fit, who starts alongside him for Aston Villa, who Emery decides. Maybe he'll bring in another centre-back and neither of them will start. So, for me, Ezri Konsa is also a no. I've got James Tarkowski here, but really I don't think that Southgate fancies him, so for me it's a no. Adam Webster I really like. I do really like Webster. And it's been one where I think he's an underappreciated, undervalued player of the Brighton squad. Came from Bristol City. I'm going to say no chance in hell as well, just because I'm looking at the list and I see who's arguably ahead of him, and I just don't think he's got a chance. Chalobah, I think, is a good rotation option at Chelsea at this moment in time. He needs to be starting games. With the way Chelsea run at the moment, does he maybe arguably need to leave similar to Mark Gahey to really put himself out there? Because you've got Koulibaly, you've got Badiashile, you've got Thiago Silva, you've got Fofana. He's not going to be starting. He's not going to be playing many games at all. So, unfortunately, because I think there is a player there, but I'm not quite sure. But I'm going to put him no chance in hell. Max Gilman, done really well at Wolves, especially since Conor Cody left. I am still going to say no chance in hell. Adebayo, Fulham, amazing season, doing really well. I just think no chance in hell. And so, who are we left with now? Dunkelkossi. Right. Ben White. I think arguably Ben White's been one of the players of the season so far. Playing maybe out of position right back. It might be the position where actually he's had long term under Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. I know what's coming next, and I know it's our right back options. And I can see our right back options, and I think we're going to have another dilemma there, which is why I think if Ben White is going to get into this England squad next Euros, he's going to have to be as a centre back, because I'm looking at our right back options, and I think arguably he's the worst attacking out of all of them. But he's still been, but it's not a criticism, Ben White, because he's actually been really good going forward for Arsenal. He's actually been underrated in how well he's been going forward, but he needs to make it as a centre back, because otherwise I don't see how he's going to get in this England squad. Oh, I'm going to come back to Ben White. Dan Burn. If Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw are both fit, I don't think he gets in left back. And I'm looking at the options, and I don't think he can get in centre back either. He's going to be 32. Gareth Southgate hasn't picked him once. I like him, but I just think we should be maybe looking more towards the future. because I think he might get it if he gets into the Euros team next summer. He's not going to be playing again for England really, because by the time the next tournament comes around, he's going to be 34. So what's the point? So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no chance in hell for Dan Burn. I've really got one centre back so far on John Stones. It's actually really hard. For Kayu Tomori, I'm going to put on the plane. And this is one where I was really surprised he wasn't actually going to the World Cup. I could not believe the fact that he was not going. I know maybe he's on a bit of a smaller side of 6'1" for centre back. Maybe that's not what Gareth Southgate wants, but you're playing week in week out for AC Milan, starting in the Champions League, doing well for AC Milan. The pedigree is, yeah. I just don't see how we shouldn't be working towards a partnership of John Stones and Tomori. And I think in the back four, he can play on the left-hand side. I know we've had issues when Harry Maguire's had some fitness issues, there has been issues with his form. Has he always been the best choice? But I think Tomori can maybe sort of left centre-back issues, because we've got no... I don't have any left-footed left centre-backs going. So I think this is one where Tomori, for me, is on the plane. For me, he's arguably starting, but Saga needs to start integrating him into the England squad. He needs to be starting a lot of competitive games, a lot of friendlies between now and the Euros. But I think for me, he's such a talented player. You cannot. So on the plane, that leaves 2 more spots, and I am torn, because now it's between Harry Maguire, Eric Dyer, and Conor Cody, who all went to the World Cup. Ben White, who I really like, and you've also got Mark Gahey. 5 players for 2 spots. And this is one where what Gareth Southgate has been really successful in doing is he's stuck to loyalty, and he's stuck with players he knows he can trust and have good mentality and attitude. But in terms of who you would actually trust to start and play 90 minutes in tournament football, I'm not sure Conor Cody is it. And I know he trusts Conor Cody because he's a good egg around the squad. But for me, if there's no chance he's going to be playing and you don't really want to be playing him, don't take him. And I'm going to say the same for Eric Dyer as well, because he's been up and down. He had a good, really great purple patch just before the World Cup, which is why he got himself in the squad. Got into the squad just before the World Cup as well, because it kind of looked a bit hazy of who was going to go. But for me, if my England squad, I'm not sure I want Conor Cody or Eric Dyer. And we're going to see what happens with Spurs as well, because obviously Conte hasn't signed a new contract. He might be leaving. A new manager might come in. They might play 4 at the back. They might not fancy Eric Dyer. I mean, Conte might stay and he might keep Eric Dyer at the back, but he might also sign a new centre-back and replace him. So, Conor Cody and Eric Dyer can go... Where can they go? They could arguably go in... Could they sneak on the plane? Could they sneak on the plane? I think Conor Cody, I do like him as a personality, but I think he's unlikely. I think Eric Dyer could sneak on the plane. And so, that's left me with Harry Maguire, Ben White, and Mark Gahey for 3 centre-back positions. And all of a sudden, out of the 4 centre-backs we took to the World Cup, it's only John Stones who went. And will Southgate take Harry Maguire? The question is, what's going to happen with Maguire and Man United? Because Erik Ten Hag definitely doesn't fancy him, hasn't been playing. He's been playing Varane and Martinez, and arguably they've been a world-class centre-back pairing so far this season. So of course Harry Maguire doesn't get into it. Does he look at it and say, I need game time before the Euros? Hopefully he does, because if he plays well for a year, I could see him getting on the plane. And Southgate trusts him. I'm going to say Harry Maguire sneaks on. Oh dear. Which then means I've got to choose between Ben White and Margay. Margay's been the one who's been playing at centre-back for Crystal Palace, playing phenomenally well, captaining the side every now and then. Ben White has been immense this season, arguably world-class, but playing out of position as well. Ooh. I think this is one maybe where big team bias comes into it from me. I'm trying not to be biased, but towards the biggest clubs. But I think maybe Ben White, who did make the World Cup squad, maybe he makes a plane, and Margay sneaks on the plane. Oh dear. So yeah, that'll make my 4 centre backs, who I would rather Gareth Southgate took: John Stones, Harry Maguire, Fikayo Tomori, and Ben White. But Margay, maybe for Harry Maguire, depending on what happens. Oh dear. I don't know how Harry Maguire snuck on. And then you've got the right backs. God. For some reason, England's one of England's most talented areas. You've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, Reece James, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Kyle Walker-Peters. I do like Kyle Walker-Peters, and it might be one where if Southampton get relegated this season, he might find himself moving to another club, getting more game time, and he might find himself there. However, I'm not sure he's going to make it with the options ahead of him. And this is a really competitive area for England. So I'm going to say Kyle Walker-Peters, no chance in hell. I'm going to say Aaron Wan-Bissaka, unlikely. Unlikely just because he has impressed me when he has played this season, but got to remember, for the beginning of the season, Erik Ten Hag didn't fancy him at all, and Diego Dalot was playing every single game. League game, Carabao Cup game, Premier League game. And it was all Diego Dalot until he got injured, and then Wan-Bissaka came in and done really well. And the Carabao Cup final especially really impressed me when he came on. But attacking wise, does he improve that much that he can do better than Reece James, Kyle Walker, even Kieran Trippier? No, I don't think so. So I'm going to say he's unlikely, but who knows what's going to happen. And I think there's definitely an outside chance he can make it. Then that leaves me with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, and Reece James. The 4. I think Kyle Walker on the plane, definitely, and he is in the squad. I don't think he's starting 11. I think he's definitely in the squad because we saw when Kieran Trippier was playing in the first initial group games, and then he had looked a bit leggy and a bit tired, and he wasn't really producing as well as we know he can for Newcastle. Along comes Kyle Walker, and he really shows it up, looks immense, especially pocketing Kylian Mbappe in the quarterfinals. And with his experience for Man City, winning titles, winning trophies, and experience with England, I think he's definitely in the squad. Reece James, for me, is arguably in the starting 11. Because I think he's our best out and out right back, defensively and attackingly. I think he's the best. He just needs to stay fit. He can play right back, right wing back. He can play right centre back if, God forbid, Southgate decides to go that way. But he can. And for me, he's in the starting 11. Which means I only have space for one more. Either Trent Alexander-Arnold or Kieran Trippier. I can see both of them going. And if there's an injury to either Ben Chilwell or Luke Shaw, Trippier goes because he can play right back and left back. But Trent Alexander-Arnold is world class going forward. And maybe you don't play him every game. That's fine, because defensively he is vulnerable at times, and the season, especially the whole Liverpool backline, have been terrible, and he's been a part of that. I would say he has improved in the last 4 or 5 games in which Liverpool have kept clean sheets and he's doing really well. However, this is tough. He's on the... is he on the plane? He's in the squad. Trent Alexander-Arnold is... I think he sneaks on the plane. And Trippier... Could Trippier also sneak on the plane? He could also sneak onto the plane. I don't feel comfortable putting King Trippier in unlikely just because he is very likely to go. Okay, so I'm going to put Trent ahead of Trippier, but I'm going to put them both on sneak on the plane because I think that position is definitely up for grabs. And again, England are saying 3 right backs, and I'm taking Ben White, who could also play right back if needs be, but I'm going to take him predominantly as centre back. Yeah. And that makes up the whole defence. So, you've got Pickford, Ramsdale, and Pope in goal. You've got Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw left back. At right back, you've got Kyle Walker, Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold, with Kieran Trippier maybe sneaking on the plane. Centre backs, you've got John Stones, Fikayo Tomori, Ben White, and Harry Maguire. And you've got Mark Gahey. Yeah, okay. Oof. This is tough because you're definitely trying to predict what happens in next summer, but that's going to be my defence. Alright, and up next, the midfielders. So, I've got a lot of names, I'm just going to read them out. You've got Bellingham, Maddison, Rice, Mount, Ward-Prowse, Henderson, Phillips, Gallagher, Eze, Dewsbury Hall, Longstaff, Skip, Loftus-Cheek, Jones, Willock, Elliott, Gibbs-White, Ramsey, and Alex Scott. So, definitely starting 100%, if this fit every game, Jude Bellingham is definitely in starting 11. I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt. He is world class. For the love of God, I hope Liverpool sign him in the summer. But whoever gets him are going to have a world class player in their hands. And he's so young and he's so mature. I can't remember what game it was, but when we had a bit of a niggle, one of the centre backs went off for a bit. And then he started straight in the centre back and was leading the line. And I was just like, I was so impressed with him. And ever since I've seen him play, especially against Chelsea in the Champions League, for Dortmund, I think he's been incredible. And oh my God, I just really want Liverpool to sign him. But 100% starting. And yet another one I think you'd take is Declan Rice. And I think he's also starting. Because when it comes to defensive midfielders, we don't have a plethora of options. And he's someone who's played there for England already in the World Cup. He's kind of... Maybe he's not that gifted in receiving the ball off the back for turning and then playing the pass really quickly and building a play quite fast. But honestly, I think we're picking bones a little bit there, and I think he's definitely England's best defensive midfielder, and he's going. And the thing is, for West Ham, he might be getting sold in the summer, and if he ends up playing at a team with the Champions League football, he's going to be getting more and more experience, playing with better players around him. So that's going to improve him and aid him even further. So I think definitely he's going to be there. I don't know who to go with next. Let's rattle some of these names off. Dewsbury Hall, no chance in hell. Think he's alright, think he's decent, but he's going to improve his levels massively. Loftus-Cheek, no chance in hell. I think another one of those Chelsea talents who doesn't get enough game time and he's been hampered with injuries for the majority of his career. He's now 27, 28, I think. For me, I think he has no chance in hell. Alex Scott. Now, I've kind of put him here as a bit of a wildcard shout. Depends what happens, because if he gets a move in the summer to a Premier League team and he does really well, then people are going to be talking about him and people are going to be mentioning his name a lot, come to the squad and be like, oh, maybe you should take him. It'd be good for experience. He's definitely going to give him future squads. Even if he has one amazing season, even if he moves clubs and has one amazing season next year, I think he's no chance in hell. I think eventually he's going to be in and around his England squad because he has backfills of talent. But at the moment of time, not for me. Oh, who to go with next? Who should we go for next? Jordan Henderson. Let's talk about Jordan Henderson because he's 32. And come the Euros, he's going to be 34. And he hasn't retired. And I did actually expect him to retire after the World Cup because I thought, go out with a bang. I mean, he did really well, played himself into that England team. He wasn't starting initially, but him, Rice, Bellingham, that was a great, multifaceted, hard-working midfield who could fill in for each other everywhere. And they really allowed the front three, whoever the front three were, to go and attack, and really they focus on the defensive part of the game. Come next Euros, should he be starting? No, I don't think he should be in the starting 11 because I think looking at the materials, there's definitely lots of talent and he should be making way. Should he be in the squad? He has experience, 100%, captaining Liverpool to every trophy there is to win, helping with his England side, kind of a leader in the dressing room, as everyone said. Everyone follows his lead, he leads by example. But there are so many young talents in and around the squad. And I love Jordan Henderson, but should he be making way for some of those more younger talents to come in? He's not going to be starting week in, week out come next year for Liverpool, just because of the fact that the home Liverpool midfield needs a revamp. And is he going to be playing enough games? I am going to say with Jordan Henderson, Gareth Southgate is incredibly loyal. I'm going to say with Jordan Henderson, it is unlikely. I don't think he maybe makes the plane for the Euros. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Liverpool fan. I love Henderson. I know he's got a lot of haters. I love him. I think he's amazing. But I did think the perfect way to... apart from winning a tournament, the perfect way to end your career is you're on the bench starting the tournament. You then force his way to starting, and everyone says arguably the most important player. And he was brilliant, but can he go again? And can he bring back the levels he was? He's only... Yeah, I'm going to stick with unlikely. Unfortunately, because I do love Jordan Henderson, but I don't think he's going to make it. Controversial. Right. Curtis Jones, I think he's in the unlikely category. Actually, no, I want to say Curtis Jones has no chance in hell. It's harsh, but he is not getting into the Liverpool field at the moment. Harvey Elliott, who's an option here, is ahead of him. Stefan Bajcetic, who's an 18-year-old, is ahead of him. 55-year-old James Milner is ahead of him. And I think it's one where he maybe needs to go on loan, or maybe get sold in the summer for Liverpool and just play games week in, week out, because at this moment in time he is not getting the game time required. No chance in hell. Jacob Ramsey. This is so hard. He's going to be unlikely. He is going to be unlikely. It depends, because under Unai Emery, he might become a fantastic player. He already is a good Premier League player, but he needs to kick on now. And it might be one where he might get a move, but I don't think he's going to get a move in the summer. I think he's going to stay at Aston Villa, going to still play under Unai Emery, and he's going to be good, but he's not going to be good enough. And unfortunately, there are so many quality players that he's not going to make it. So I'm going to say it's unlikely, and really I've got to be cutthroat here, don't I? I'm going to say Skip is unlikely. He's been starting games for Spurs, but realistically when Højbjerg and Bentancur are fit, he doesn't get in this side, so I'm going to say it's unlikely, because if he gets a move to Premier League team, maybe, but unlikely. Joe Willock, I'm going to say no chance in hell. I do like Joe Willock. He had that amazing pro patch when he joined Newcastle on loan from Arsenal. However, he's not starting for Newcastle. Even when Bruno Guimaraes was out with the suspension, he wasn't starting, and I think it's one where Newcastle are constantly going to look to upgrade on him, and I don't think he's going to in 3 years' time, is he still going to be in Newcastle? I don't think so. I'm saying no chance in hell for Joe Willock. Sean Longstaff, been playing ahead of Joe Willock. However, I do worry for Sean Longstaff. He is the shining light in Newcastle's academy, one that hasn't produced very many talents as of late, but again, I think this is going to be one where eventually he's going to be moved out of the starting 11 and maybe moved out of the squad completely. So I'm going to say no chance in hell. Who we got left? Morgan Gibbs-White, who I think is doing really well in Nottingham Forest, really picked up. Him and Brendan Johnson and really started to get a partnership going. However, he did move for a lot of money. He's played England under 21 and done really well, but he needs to be playing in the number 10, and I'm not sure England will be playing with number 10, and if they do, I think there's a couple of players who I want ahead of him. So I'm going to say unlikely for Morgan Gibbs-White, because if Nottingham Forest kick on next year, I think he definitely has a shout. And some of the players who I think are ahead of him, Abir Eze, I love him. I think he's going to be unlikely those. So even though he's been doing really well with Crystal Palace, getting a few goals and assists now, but if and Morgan Gibbs-White is unlikely, I think he's going to be unlikely. To be fair, I didn't include him here, but Elise, his counterpart at Crystal Palace, I also think he's quite. Maybe he's no chance in hell. If Abir is unlikely, who I think is slightly better. Who's left? Mason Mount. Okay, Mason Mount, who is struggling at this moment in time and is getting a lot of flack from the Chelsea fans and fans of other clubs. I think Mason Mount is I think he's a great player on his day, and I think he should be in and around this England squad. He is struggling for form at this moment in time, and I think the contract talks doesn't really help. If he signed a new contract at Chelsea, I think they'd be like, no, Mason Mount, he's come through the academy. He went on loan to Derby County with Frank Lampard. He came into Frank Lampard's Chelsea side when he first started, and he's really kicked on. Now he's a really shining light of the academy, but there is that thing about, is he going to sign a new contract? I know Liverpool have been linked on. I think he'd be great for Liverpool. If he goes to Man City, he'd be great as well for them. He's not in the starting 11, but I don't think he should be sneaking onto the plane either. I think he's in the squad. Then Mason Mount makes it and he's in the squad. And I think another player in the squad with him is James Maddison, who there was a lot of clamour for James Maddison to start in the World Cup, at least to be taken playing. People like, you cannot take James Maddison. Ultimately, he didn't play a single minute, so it didn't really matter. But I think in the summer he's been linked with Newcastle heavily, and I think there's a chance that if Maddison were to move to a team who were going to be higher up in the table, show Gareth Southgate that, I can do this at multiple clubs, I think all of a sudden James Maddison not just sneaks on the plane, but I think he's in the squad. I think James Maddison is in the squad come next Euros, because I think he gets a move. If he doesn't get a move, I think maybe he's on the side of unlikely, actually, because I just don't think Gareth Southgate rates him, but he gets a move to a team higher up the table, and I think James Maddison makes the squad. So far, we've got Bellingham, Maddison, Declan Rice, Mason Mount, James Ward-Prowse. Again, similar to when I was talking about Kyle Walker-Peters, it'll be interesting what happens to Southampton if they get relegated this season or not. Because if they do, James Ward-Prowse is going to have to move clubs because he's far too good to be playing in the Championship. We'll see what happens. Obviously, he's got this whole set piece thing. He's got the corners, he's got the free kicks, he's got penalties, and everyone's raving about him, and he's going to break David Beckham's record of all free kicks in the Premier League. He's, I think, 1 or 2 behind now. He's definitely going to break it. But it detracts from the fact that he is a really good footballer, and people focus only on the set pieces, which works against him, actually, because he's so good at them. So I think if Southampton were to get relegated, he does move, and then he shows how good of a player he is, and the team are just slightly better. But I don't think he makes it. So I'm going to say he's unlikely, just because he's not a defensive midfielder. But if he was, England definitely need one of those. And in terms of playing those 8s in box to box, you've got the likes of Bellingham, Rice can play there, Mount can play there. Do you really need him? Is he ahead of Henderson? It's really close. It's really close. I love Ward-Prowse, but I think it's unlikely. Gareth Southgate didn't pick him for the World Cup. I don't think he'll be picking him again for the Euros. Conor Gallagher. He went to the World Cup. I didn't expect him to go. He's kind of an outside shout. I mean, just again, so many of these players, because you're trying to predict what's going to happen in 18 months' time. It's so difficult to predict what's going to happen this summer. I think a lot of this summer is crucial for a lot of these England players. I think Conor Gallagher, he had so many clubs vying for him over the January transfer window. Everton wanted him, Newcastle wanted him, Palace wanted him, and I think there were several others as well. He is really good, and I think it's one where he's being wasted at Chelsea a little bit. Chelsea, who are playing with they're playing with a back three. Reece James and Bencho are wing backs, and they're playing with a two midfield. And at the moment, it's Kovacic and Enzo Fernandez. It might be Kante when he comes back. Sometimes it's Zakaria. But he's not getting in that two at this moment in time. Is he getting into that Chelsea front three? I don't think so. I think when you got the likes of Havertz, Aubameyang, Mount, who are Chelsea players, Madueke, Pulisic, you've got Sterling, you've got Mudryk. I mean, you've still got Hakim Ziyech as well. I mean, he's not getting that front three. He's not getting that midfield two. He needs to move, but I think it's one where he will get the move, and he will make the team. But I think he's going to sneak on the plane. He's not starting 11 quality yet, especially if you think about Rice, Bellingham, Maddison, Mount. Not starting 11 quality yet. He's in the squad, but I think he sneaks onto the plane. Yeah, just sneaks onto the plane. And that leaves us with Harvey Elliott and Calvin Phillips. Now, Calvin Phillips has not played many minutes at all for Man City this season, and the fact that he went to the World Cup at all was... I wasn't surprised. I could understand Gareth Southgate's thinking because of the fact that obviously we are lacking defensive midfielders. It is only Declan Rice who can really play there. Henderson, but I'm not taking him. I think he's unlikely. And for that reason, I think Calvin Phillips has to go. And I think for Gareth Southgate, he's in the squad. For me, he sneaks onto the plane. Just because if it's not Declan Rice in the defensive midfield role, it's Calvin Phillips. And I think it's going to be interesting next season who gets more minutes, because Jordan Henderson or Calvin Phillips, because Henderson's minutes are... He was a starter and he's working his way down now to a squad player, kind of being rotated and maybe coming off the bench the last 20 minutes. Calvin Phillips, hopefully a fit Calvin Phillips for next season. We'll see how many minutes he gets. I mean, Rodri's ahead of him. I mean, to displace Rodri, it's not going to happen. He's going to be second fiddle. But can he find his way into that side somehow? Can he be playing alongside Rodri? Can he be taking Rodri's minutes here and there? I think it's one where Calvin Phillips sneaks onto the plane, but he needs to be playing more. He definitely needs to be playing more. For Gareth Southgate, he probably makes it. So midfielders, we're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is there room for Harvey Elliott? Harvey Elliott, who has come on leaps and bounds. Liverpool bought him from Fulham. He went on loan to Blackburn, did really well. Got injured last season, unfortunately, very early on against Leeds. He was starting ahead of Jordan Henderson, remember that. Then he came back, and this season he's really shown that, he's there to be accounted for, and, Liverpool can rely on him. So they're going to be improving more and more. Do England take him? That's the question. And I'm not sure we do, really, if I'm being completely honest, because you take him for the experience, but he's not going to be challenging for a starting 11 spot, is he? And maybe you bring him on for 10-15 minutes, but then you've got so many quality players ahead of him. Is there any point? Is he better off just playing in the under-21s, under-23s for England and just getting that experience another way? Maybe having a full summer off, having pre-season, is it better for him? What's he going to be like next season? I do not know. He's only going to be improving, I know that for sure, but I think with Bellingham, Maddison, Rice, Mount, Phillips and Gallagher, I think for now, England are fine for midfielders. And I think Elliott is unlikely, just because I think to replace any of those six, he needs to be starting week in, week out. I think there's definitely potential with Conor Gallagher and Calvin Phillips, depending on their game time. I think maybe he can take their place. But I think he's just going to miss out. And so then we're left with the forward options. We've got 18 players already. If this was a 25-man squad, we've got 7 slots left. Of course, the World Cup squad was 26 players, so maybe they'll allow 1 or 2 more, who knows. But at this moment in time, I'm going to assume it's going to be a 25-man squad. And there's 7 forwards we can take. So, let's not mess around. Captain Kane, starting 11. 100%. Captain Kane, starting 11. I know he missed a penalty in the quarterfinal, and I know people are talking about right now about Spurs exiting the Champions League, what's going to be his future, blah, 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 blah. He's still a world-class player. He's still England's number 9. He's still going to be starting every game at the Euros, no matter what. Then, Marcus Rashford. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford, because he's been sensational. He's been world-class and arguably the most formed player in Europe so far since the World Cup. Is he going to still be in this kind of form come the Euros? I hope so, because if he is, that means he's going to be an incredible player. He's probably going through a bit of a purple patch right now, and he's probably going to... His assist and goal output's going to probably decrease a little bit. But if he can still maintain something around about this level, I don't see why he shouldn't be starting. But because of the options we have, I think he's more going to be in the squad. I think the player who is going to be starting is Bukayo Saka. And I know people have been comparing Rashford and Saka, who's better, who's playing well, who's the better youngster. But on that right-hand side for England, we don't have anyone who's naturally plays on the right wing. I mean, we got Phil Foden, who can play there, but doesn't have the pace that Saka has. And he's arguably been the best right winger in the league so far this season. And you've got the likes of Mo Salah, Riyad Mahrez, Anthony's done alright, but it's been Saka really. If the team of the season was today, it'd be Saka on that right wing. And I think since his penalty miss in the Euros last summer, he has been really... Not last summer, the summer before that. Yeah, summer before that. It's all blurring into one. But since that miss, he's really gone and shown his mentality is bulletproof. He's taken penalties for Arsenal now. He's been arguably England's best young player. He's done really well for Arsenal so far this season. Double-digit goals. And for me, he is starting. He is 100% starting on that right wing. Never let England down. Phil Foden next, who... It's been interesting with Phil Foden because there's always a clamour for him to start and play games because everyone can see the world-class potential he has. However, his output hasn't always been to that level. And I think that's quite harsh on him to put all that expectation because he is still a young player. He's been around for a few years now and he's kind of been slowly integrated into the Man City side. But it's got to a point now where he should be starting week in, week out. And he should be dominating games of football because of the talent that he has. And he hasn't. But I think just because he hasn't, he shouldn't be taken out of the England squad. He should always be in the England setup because at any moment he's going to have that change mentality or that whatever it is on the training pitch that clicks and he's going to be producing goals and assists and the numbers are going to be incredible for game after game after game. And I definitely think he doesn't necessarily start, but he definitely makes the squad. He definitely 100% makes the squad. Who is going to be the backup striker to Harry Kane? It's going to be interesting. At this moment in time, I'm going to say Dominic Calvert-Lewin has no chance in hell. Just because he cannot get himself fit. He absolutely cannot get himself fit. And when he can, he's fit. It takes him 3 or 4 games to get up to match fitness. And then he plays well for 2 games and he gets injured. He really needs to sort it out. And Everton desperately need him to get fit. Because without him, they look like they're in serious trouble of getting relegated. Ivan Toney, I'm going to say no chance in hell. And I like Ivan Toney. I think he's a cracking player. His penalty record is amazing, and his all-round play is fantastic. He's probably the most like Kane centre forward we England have. However, just because of the whole betting scandal and he's pleaded guilty to some of the charges, I just don't think Gareth Southgate's going to touch him. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure. I do really like Ivan Toney, but I just know Gareth Southgate's not even going to consider him because of that. So I'm going to say no chance. Harvey Barnes, I'm going to say no chance at this moment in time, just because he has never really kicked on, and he's always he's not clinical enough, frankly, compared to the likes of Rashford, Saka, Kane. He's not clinical enough, and I think he's got no chance. Jarrod Bowen, I think Jarrod Bowen is unlikely. I think the really reason he's got more of a chance than Harvey Barnes is because he had that incredible season last year, and he made it into the England setup. People were clamoring for him to start, and again, like I mentioned, on that right hand side, we don't have many natural left footed players with pace who can play there, and he has that. But his form has dropped off. The whole of West Ham's form has dropped off, and I think Saka's nailed down that right hand side, and I think you need to find a space for Foden as well. So I think Jarrod Bowen he's unlikely for me. He's unlikely, but never say never. But I just don't see it. I don't see it for the next Euros. I think he needed to carry on with that form. Anthony Gordon, I'm going to say no chance. And if you asked me last year, I would have thought, okay, he's definitely got some potential. He needs to kick on now. But the fact that Everton sold him, Everton were kind of showing him the door. He didn't really want to play. He didn't really want to be there. He wasn't really good enough. He wasn't producing week in, week out. And maybe got him, and he got a big money move to Newcastle. But the fact that Newcastle are still playing Almiron and Saint-Maximin on the right and left respectively just shows that he's still got a ways to go. And I think the Euros might be a bit too soon. Arguably, did Newcastle pay a bit too much for Anthony Gordon? Maybe, but only time will tell. But for the Euros next year, I'm going to say no chance. Ooh, where do we go next? Let's go with Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson, who I really like, but trying to predict where all these players are going to be next summer. Is Alexander Isak going to be fit? Going to be starting week in, week out? Is going to take Callum Wilson's place in the starting 11 for Newcastle? And his minutes going to be limited? And I think they all might be true. And I think it's going to be unlikely that Callum Wilson makes it. Just because I think when you got Wilson and you got someone like Ollie Watkins, who is going to be starting week in, week out under Unai Emery, unless obviously they buy a centre forward. Obviously Watkins isn't as clinical as Callum Wilson, but because Watkins will be playing week in, week out, he's got more of a chance. But I still think Ollie Watkins is unlikely. He's got a chance, but I think it's unlikely. Because the centre forward who I think is going to be debutising for Kane is going to be Tammy Abraham. I really like him. I think it's one where he had a fantastic season last year. So far this season he's been struggling in Serie A under Jose Mourinho's Roma side. But I think he will pick it back up. I think he's that quality of player. Arguably, Chelsea made a mistake selling him, considering this lack of centre forwards who can score goals. They brought him to the academy. They should have kept Tammy Abraham. 100% should have kept him. It was another case of Chelsea selling a young player who they should have kept. And for me, Tammy Abraham's going to be debutising for Harry Kane. And I'm going to say he's on the plane. Because I think there are levels, and I think Tammy Abraham's going to show. Maybe this is more in hope than actual expectation, but I think he's going to show come the Euros next year that, you know what, he should be debuting for Kane, if not arguably maybe starting. Maybe that's a bit controversial, but we'll see. Who does that leave us with? So we've got one more spot. We've chosen Kane, we've chosen Foden, we've got Saka, we've got Rashford, we've got Tammy Abraham. We've got two more spots. Florian Balogun, doing really well in France at this moment in time. Are Arsenal going to keep him next season? Are they going to give him the game time he needs to flourish? it might be worth him going back on loan actually for his best interest and the best interest of Arsenal, because they've got Gabriel Jesus, they've got Eddie Nketiah. Is Balogun going to be getting game time? I don't think so. So I'm going to say no chance. I think he's very young. He's 20. So it's one where he might have to play with the youth setup for England for a little bit longer. Already smashing it for them. Eddie Nketiah. Oh, I did say put some respect on Eddie, get his name in the previous Arsenal video. He's going to be back up to Gabriel Jesus, and I think he's going to play enough minutes with the Champions League, with Arsenal having Champions League as well, that he's not going to request a move. So I'm going to say it's unlikely, because he's not going to get the minutes to shine to prove that he should be starting. Noni Madueke, who I did really like at PSV. However, he's moved to Chelsea, hasn't been getting many minutes. He's struggled in the past with injuries as well. The craziness that is Chelsea, I'm not sure he's going to be playing enough minutes to show again how good he is. And a lot of these players, it is minutes. But I'm going to go with unlikely, because he could be electrifying on his day, and he could definitely show Gareth why he should be in the team. But again, I don't think it's going to be enough. Emile Smith-Rowe, who I really, really like. That's the thing, there's so many England players who I really, really like. But the thing is, you've got to be borderline world class to be in this England squad, which is so promising, because look at the squad, we should be doing really well in the Euros. We should be trying to win it. Again, minutes. I keep repeating myself, but he seems struggling with minutes. He's got Martin Odegaard ahead of him. He's not going to be displacing Odegaard. They've also signed Vieira. He's going to be starting ahead of Vieira. I don't know. Vieira might go to the right and play like a second fiddle to Saka. But on the left, you got Martinelli, and I've got Trossard as well. Is he going to be playing on the left? I don't think so. So where is he going to get his game time from? And because of that, I'm going to have to say unlikely. He needs to stay fit. Obviously, he's suffered a horrendous injury, but he needs to stay fit. But again, game time, where is he going to come from? And so that leaves us with one of two? No. 2 of 3. Raheem Sterling, Jack Grealish, Jadon Sancho. Only 2 of them can go. Who do you pick? Arguably, Grealish and Sancho and Sterling, all 3 of them actually, none of them start at this moment in time. Because you play Rashford, Kane, you play Saka, and maybe you bring Foden on. Sterling does have the experience, he's trusted by Gareth Southgate. And he is playing for Chelsea at this moment in time, which is why I'm going to go for Sterling. I think he will be in the squad. He's definitely going to be in the squad. I don't think he's going to sneak on playing. He's going to be in the squad. Gareth Southgate trusts him. And then there's Sancho or Grealish. And Sancho, who obviously missed the penalties in the Euros, has had a difficult time of it of late with mental health issues, not being in the Man United team. But he has come back. He has looked promising. I know his promising appearance has come in the League Cup and also playing in the 10, not out wide. But I can definitely see him making it into the England squad. So I'm going to put him sneaking onto the plane because I think he has a chance. However, I think it's going to be Grealish, who, when the other team are tiring, you want to bring someone on, he's going to get you the fouls and he's going to drive the team forward. So I'm going to say Grealish makes the squad and Sancho sneaks onto the plane, but we'll see. And there we have it. My England squad for Euro 2024, there are so many players in contention, so many players who can put themselves into the mix. Of course, when the World Cup squad was being announced, a couple of weeks before, there were reports saying 55 England players have had to give their information in so they could be registered to go and fly out to Qatar. And it's not an easy task, and I don't envy Gareth Southgate, but there's a long way to go. So many things can change. You can have injuries, you can have lack of form, you can have off the field issues, anything can change. But at this moment in time, this is the 25-man squad that I would go for. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, I think there's going to be some controversies. Of course, there always is. It's the England squad. Everyone's got their opinion. That's the beauty of it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below.